Welcome to the VBAC Homebirth Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Winning, founder of the Motherhood Circle and creator of the Journey into Motherhood program. I'm a mother of two and have had two unplanned and unneeded C-sections and am planning my first home and vaginal birth. My own journey has sparked a deep passion to support women to find their own voice and strength to create the pregnancy, birth and motherhood experience you desire. This podcast is for women wanting to learn more about VBACs, especially home births, and for professionals who want to learn more about how to support VBAC home birthing women. Inside, we're going to share women's stories from surgical birth to achieving their vaginal home birth after cesarean. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to this podcast. This is a real bit of an introduction video to let you know what this podcast is going to be about, why I created this podcast, and who I am as well. Before you start listening to any episodes, I highly recommend that you listen to this one so you can see if it's for you and understand, the whole purpose around this podcast as well. I am Ashley. My name's Ashley Winning. I am a motherhood guide and a doula. I'm a mother of two. My children are currently, I've got two little girls. They're currently 5.5 and 3.5. And I suppose my story started back in 2014 when I was pregnant with my first baby. I found myself with a diagnosis of gestational diabetes during my pregnancy, and I handed over my complete power to the healthcare providers at the hospital, the public hospital in Australia, where I was. I had complete faith that they were the experts and that they knew what was going to be best for me. And I also felt that I was getting specialist care because I was seeing obstetricians primarily. I never saw midwives at all. I was in obstetric care. And I will go on to share my stories in more detail. So I'm planning on doing a story for each of my births. But essentially, I found myself in a cesarean section. And I didn't feel right about that. I didn't feel okay about that. I felt like a failure as a mother after my cesarean section. I never felt like it was needed or required. And the more that I researched and found out about VBACs, the more I really wanted one. So when my second baby was born, or when my second baby was created and conceived, I knew I was going to have a VBAC. And so I advocated and fought for that, which ended in another C-section, an unneeded and unwanted C-section. And that caused me a lot of birth trauma, mostly because it was very much unneeded, and I felt failed, and I felt let down, and I felt a lot of things, which I'll go more into in some of the episodes. But I didn't realize how hard it was going to be for me to get a VBAC, to achieve a VBAC. I completely believed in my body both times. And so I'd heard about women having cesareans, and I thought, well, my mother had given birth vaginally with no issues or anything previously, and her mother before, and her mother before. And so I always thought that I would be having a vaginal birth, but I wasn't aware of some of the politics, some of the insurance issues, some of the judgments, some of the biases, some of the interventions. I wasn't aware of what was happening in the hospital system, which had severely impacted me in my birth. So in both of my births. So as I felt, started to say I was going to have another baby with my husband, I spent a lot of time preparing for my next baby, which I'm currently pregnant with now. And I'm having and planning a home birth after two cesareans. So I spent a lot of time learning about birth this time, learning about debriefing over my last births and learning about the support that's out there, hearing other women's stories and understanding, what went wrong with my story and why I ended up where I was. I really wanted to uncover my own story. So I listened to a lot of VBAC podcasts. I listened to as many as I could. I listened to a lot of home birthing podcasts, but what I really wanted to listen to was, as I was going on with my journey, the VBAC hospital podcasts were great for me to see other women doing it and to hear other women doing it, and it gave me hope. And I understood, especially now that I'm planning a VBAC after, two cesareans, you're always looking at yourself and wanting to create something that's going to be suitable for yourself, that's going to reflect your journey, something that you can hang on to. So now that I'm in this space that I've decided I'm having a home birth, it wouldn't be appropriate. It doesn't feel appropriate for me. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel, I don't want to hear hospital birth VBAC stories. It's not what I'm planning for. I'm not going to be subjected to interventions. I'm not going to be subjected to talks about inductions. I'm not going to have the same coercive conversations that I had last time. I'm not going to have to fight or advocate for myself this time. And so I wanted to create a podcast for women who are, wanting to explore VBAC, but also women who are wanting to explore that in a home birth setting. And I couldn't find a podcast or a resource that was purely just for women who wanted to home birth after have a vaginal birth after a cesarean at home. And so I had been thinking about it while I was pregnant. I didn't have the energy because I was so sick with morning sickness. And I thought, no, I really need to create this. I need women to share their stories. I know there's so many inspiring women's stories out there. And this is something that needs to be created for all of us. For me, I need this for myself, but I need to create this for other women because I know that there's so many thousands of women out there who desperately want to hear from other women who are going through the same thing as them. They might be choosing home birth as their only option because they feel like hospital birth is not safe for them, that they feel so traumatized to go into a hospital setting again. They may feel home birth is the safest option for them because they've done their research and they've come to the conclusion that they're not high risk. They don't deem themselves high risk. They want to be in a safe space. For me, the reason why I want a home birth is because it makes complete sense. I've traveled in labour to hospital before, and that was horrible. I've had to organise my toddler to, drop my toddler off on the way to hospital. It just becomes really challenging when you've got more children to have to worry about as well and worrying about childcare. So having a home birth, you can have your children home with you. You don't have to leave. You don't have to be in pain, in the car, moving to hospital. You don't have to worry about fending off anyone in your birth space or anything like that. You're in your complete safe zone. This is your home. You're the queen of your home. You're the boss. I love that I could wake up in the middle of the night and just do whatever it is that I feel comfortable doing. Be naked, put music on, whatever it is, turn my lights up, turn my lights down, go in my backyard, go do whatever I want, jump in a bath because being a high BMI woman, I wasn't allowed to get into a bath because it was deemed an intervention. But it was recommended that when I came in that I would have an epidural. So they were more than happy to put a needle into my spine, which could have caused many, many, many long-term effects for me. There's pages and pages that you need to read when you have a spinal epidural. But they wouldn't let me get into a bath because it's an intervention, like running the bath and allowing a bigger woman to get in the bath. So for those reasons, that's why I deem it safer for me to be in a space where I can be free and I can allow my body to do the things that it needs and wants to do. And it did it so beautifully as well. I've come to learn that mindset is a huge thing. Trusting yourself and following your intuition and really tapping into yourself and having people around you who believe in you and trust in you and know you can do this and believe in birth. I also found one of the most important things as well. So what I'm doing is I'm connecting with women who have had home births after cesarean. They have their vaginal home birth. I'm sharing their stories. I'm interviewing them, finding out the juicy gossip details, the facts, the information, their stories, their version, what happened to them. This is a safe space for them to come and share their stories. And I'm also going to be sharing part of my stories and part of my experience and part of the information I found along my travels as well as a doula and also planning my home birth after vaginal birth, after cesarean. And I will also have some experts that come on as well, people who I've been following closely who are huge advocates for vaginal birth, who constantly share information, facts, who are highly educated people and are, telling some truths that are truly happening in the system here in Australia and worldwide. So I'm teeing up some interviews with experts, and it's going to be a bit of a mix match. It's going to be women telling their stories, experts telling their stories, and facts and information, and also myself. So I really hope that you enjoy this podcast, and if you're interested in sharing your story, please send me an email. And if you know someone who needs to listen to this podcast, please share it with them as well. I really hope that you enjoy it. I would love to hear your comments and your feedback. This is created for you. This is created for women who are looking to home birth after cesarean, have a vaginal birth. This is for healthcare providers who want to provide support, amazing support to women who are, wanting this as well, and understanding their needs, understanding their desires, truly understanding what support they need. So thank you again for listening, and I look forward to getting to know you and this crazy journey that we're going to go on together. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the VBAC Homebirth Stories Podcast. I hope that this episode has helped you take another step to finding your voice and confidence in your VBAC journey. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to help more women to find out more about VBAC Homebirth, just like you. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at the Motherhood Circle. See you next week.